This is a Blender Rigging 1. I downloaded and opened the lamp 001 file, which is where we're going to start with this demo. And you can see I have a basic lamp. There's not much more going on besides that. It's made out of multiple components. So first thing we want to do is we want to actually create some pivot points and groupings, because if you look, you'll see that this is actually made out of multiple pieces. So when I animate, I don't want to have to select the pin and this side of the arm and that side of the arm and move them separately. So what I want to do is create, for all intents and purposes, a group. The groups in Blender aren't like the groups in other 3D modeling programs, so we're actually going to use empties to create groups. In other 3D programs, the creation of groups basically uses an empty as well, but the entire process is kind of hidden and automated. So the very bottom, the base, we're going to leave that alone. This is going to be the parent, the main part that drives everything else as we work on this rig. And then the swivel, we'll come back and do that in a minute, but let's start with the lower arm. So I'm going to go back to side view, and I'm going to select the lower bottom pin. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to do object, snap, cursor to selected. That's a 3D cursor, so now it's popped to that and it's exactly centered. And I'm going to add an empty, and I'm not going to use a normal empty, I'm going to use a circle empty. And if I zoom out, you'll see this creates a circle. I'm going to rename this circle, and I'm going to call this lower arm control, or you can call it group. And I'm going to click this and knock this down to 0.5, and also go back to its properties and toggle on name. So now no matter what window we're in, we always know where it is and we can select that. The other goal with rigging is to basically not select the actual geometry, to add controls that enable you to do different manipulations of that geometry. So let's do a border select, and let's see, we got both of those, and then I'll hold down the shift key and I will see if we can select the pin. Okay, let me try this again. Pin, both the arm pieces, hold down the shift, and now we got the arm control, save that last. Object, parent, object, object. And now to test this out, we'll just select the arm control by itself, go into rotate, and you can see that all those elements move together, so that's properly set up. Make sure to undo that, and then I can come in and hide the linking lines. They're kind of subtle, but there are lines that draw from these parts to the empty. So I'll go and I'll turn off relationship lines so visually it's not as hard to understand what's going on. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we'll do the elbow. So once again, I'm going to select the top, the pin at the top of the lower arm, and I will do the same thing of object, snap, cursor to selected, and then add empty circle. We got our circle. Let's rename it. This one is going to be elbow control, and we'll come down and toggle on name for that and make it half the size, just like we did the last one. And then select the elbow, the pin, and then select the elbow control and parent all those together. Parent object, object, there we go. And then just deselect and select the control and rotate and confirm that everything goes along for the ride. Do the same thing with the top elbow. So once again, object, snap, cursor to center, add empty circle, knock this down to 0.5, toggle on name, and call this upper arm control, hit enter, and then select now we're going to attach so let me border select those two and grab the pin and grab the arm control, parent those all together, object, let's test this out, make sure it works. Okay, so that works fine. And now let's go up to the top of the lamp and we have the neck part here, so we're going to do the same thing once again. Object, snap, cursor to selected, add, empty, circle, change this to neck control, toggle on the name, and make this half the size it is, 0.5. Okay, so for the head, I'm actually just going to make it in the same, let me parent everything together. So grab this, and that, and this, and go and parent everything together. And double check and make sure everything works for that. And now finally we'll do one for the head. So I'm going to create another empty circle, and I'm going to move it on the, and let's just make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to move over to wireframe and make sure that this is pretty darn close to centered on the lamp. Okay, so we got that set up. I'm going to knock this down to 0.5. I'm going to call this head control. And now the thing I need to do with this is, if I look at it in the top view, I have to actually be able to rotate it 180 degrees or 90 degrees, because I want to be able to rotate the head in this direction, not this direction. So let's hit rotate, hold down Control key, and in the top view we'll rotate this 90 degrees, and we have that set up. And now we have that control curve basically visible from that side. And now we're going to go in and order select and select all the elements that make up the head, deselect the next control, and make sure that the head curve, or the head control, is the last one. Parent object, object, and let's grab this. And okay, everything's hooked up to that. So we're going to go down the bottom. It's the kind of the last spot that we need to look at anything. And we're going to add one more curve for this swivel right here, so we can control it, because once again then we don't have to touch it. So snap, cursor to selected, add, empty, circle. I'm going to leave this the giant size. We might have to adjust it, but we'll look real quick. So this is Swivel Control. Turn on the name, and then I'm going to grab the swivel, and then grab, now let's do this in this view. Rotate. Okay, because we want to make this flat. So you can see now we have it flat. Grab the swivel, grab this. And now we can basically parent that all together. Parent object. And now let's grab the control by itself and rotate, and that's okay, so that's working properly. Yep, there it goes. Okay. The base you leave alone. The one thing we do want to do with the base, though, is we want to adjust where its pivot point is, and right now you can see its pivot point is up here. We want to move it to the very bottom, which sometimes they call it zeroing out, because imagine that this is the foot, and when we hit the bottom, so let's do the wireframe, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and move this and get this as close to the bottom as possible, and then let's do this wireframe so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to do object, snap cursor to center of the world. I have the base selected, and I'm going to do object transform, and I'm going to say origin to 3D cursor, and now the pivot point for this lower object is now here. And the nice thing about that is when I animate, I can make sure that this value is at 0, so I know whether or not the foot of the lamp accidentally goes through the ground. So those are the basic controls that we want to start with, and now we are ready to actually hook all these items together. So I'm going to grab the head control, and then I'm going to grab the next control, and I'm going to parent those, and then I'm going to, and let's make sure that this works, so rotate it, okay, and now I'm going to grab the lower arm control and do the same thing, Control P, check and make sure that that works. Take the elbow and then, take the upper arm and then the elbow, Control P, and check that, rotate, that works. And then elbow control and the lower arm, Control P, object. And then the lower arm control is then the child of swivel control. So Control P again. And then finally the swivel is the child of the base. And the base is what we would call the root, because it's the top parent of everything else. So Control P, object. And now, if everything works properly, we should be able to grab the base. And let me lock the ground plane so I don't accidentally select these. And go around and I can move everything. You see everything else moves along for the ride. And then if I come in and I start doing rotates on this, all the other elements move. So at this point I could start animating. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to make this a little easier to, a little bit more user-friendly. And the way we're going to do that is to basically disable certain controls and options. So if we open up an outliner, if we look, you'll start to see that we have basically different elements. So the base actually is made modifier and cylinder, but it is the parent of the swivel control. Now the swivel control has the base swivel, which is the actual piece of geometry that is right here. And we don't want to be able to select that because we don't want to animate that, so we're going to turn that off. And now we have the lower arm control, and that is made out of these items, the pin, lower left arm, right arm. And then we open up the elbow control. We don't want to be able to select the elbow or the lower upper pin. Lower upper control, we want to be able to select neck control. We don't want this, this, or this. Open up neck, head control. We don't want to be able to select this or that. And then the bulb and the shade and everything, we don't want to be able to select any of those items. So let's make sure we got everything, yeah. So at this point, regardless of what I touch, if I try to click, the only things that are going to be active right now are the controls and the base. So that's one way to limit things. It just makes it easier, less choices, less options. And now we can go and we can grab each one of these individual items. Now for the base, we're not really going to do much with changing it. But there is this option of transformation locks, and we want to leave all these off for the base because you might want to scale the object and make it bigger, have two lamps, etc. So it's not something you necessarily want to do. But then let's come into the swivel control, and we don't want to do move location or scale at all for these. And if we go and we do rotate, you'll see right now it's on Z. So let's turn off everything except for Z, and now you see the only option we can do regardless of which direction is moving it back and forth. So that's basically a lock. And then we can do the same thing and come through and grab the lower arm, and you'll see that that's basically on Y. So we're going to turn off everything for that. And then the elbow is going to be Y once again because it's the same axis. And so the upper arm control, and then the neck control, and the head, we actually just want to rotate on this axis, which even though I rotated it, is still the Y. So we turn all that off. And now at this point we've really limited anything because we can only move these things in the directions of the actual controls. So this makes your life much, much easier. Also, if you hit the R key and you go to animate these, they'll automatically move. So at this point, I'd save this as a rig. I can use it and simplify it.